Hi, welcome back to Casually Comics, and once more we're in full casual mode. We're going to be taking a look mostly at one of the stories from DC's Harlequin romances. It's a bit of a mouthful. This is one of DC's anthology issues, one of their holiday anthologies. This one is loosely Valentine's themed, or romance themed. So it came out to February to be timed with that fact. It is a bit surprising to me that they haven't played upon the whole Harlequin thing sooner. Harlequin, for those who aren't aware, is a massive line of romance novels. They're not exactly tawdry. It depends on which ones you're reading, but they do tend towards the more cheesy, beach ready, trashy kind of romance. If you're into that, they can be really fun. If not, there are tons of essays and videos about how awful and problematic they are. Mileage varies for them. This anthology and how it was pitched looked like it was out to have a good time. In general, again, it depends how you feel about anthologies. Some people are very into them, others aren't. Others, it depends upon what the theme is or what the price point is. The price point has been creeping up over the years. For example, this anthology was $9.99 USD, which is quite a bit, even more if you live where I do in Canada. And so as a result, that does factor in a bit to how you receive the story. At least it does for me. Let me know if it does for you down below. It definitely adds an extra. Am I getting $10 worth? $10 is a lot. You can do a lot with $10. I mean, less than you used to be able to, but still a decent amount. In this anthology, you're getting 8 stories, so you're paying more than $1 per story, and they're only a few pages each. I did end up picking it up. I have a soft spot for these more out there kind of romance stories, and it played with the concept that they were just gonna have fun and go with some rare pairs. That's not exactly what happened here. Sometimes with these anthologies, they can be made up of a bunch of different things. Sometimes they're actual works that are made specifically for the anthology, or they're testing out new writers, they're testing out new artists. Sometimes they're stories that belong somewhere else, but whatever they belong to got canceled, and then they end up somewhere like here. Positive, for all of these, they were romance themed, because we've had anthologies where that is not the case. Now, if you did read this, please let me know, and I want to know which stories stood out to you or which ones you really enjoyed or didn't. On the whole, just in my opinion, none of them were truly the most standout of tales. The Harlequin story at the start had the title Stranger Than Fanfiction, which, while I understand the play on words, the story itself didn't really play that much with any genuine fanfiction tropes. As someone who was very heavily involved in the scene and still is in some aspects, it felt more like someone playing with the concept of what fanfiction is rather than what fanfiction truly is, which we're not even going to get into how maligned it can be in some circles, but there's a lot more to it than many people who aren't actively involved in it realize. And there can be some great fan fiction pieces out there. This story does not pay homage to that, but that's not why we are here. We are here for Kite Man. But before we get there, there were a couple of other things I noted in a couple of the other stories. In the Ice and Fire and trying to get Fire a date for Valentine's Day because she's never really had one story, there was a Power Boy reference. I noted it, I made a community post about it. And then later on in the Aquaman story, which was Harley Quinn gets all of these gals together and they all share romantic experiences that they've had with Aquaman, or like awkward romantic encounters. There was Zatanna, Lori Lemaris, Vixen. It was quite the assembly of ladies who were having these moments with Aquaman. And again, as mentioned, one of them was Lori Lemaris. I had one of those moments where sometimes I wonder if people who create comics watch this channel, and then I put that thought in a box. I put that box inside another box, and I keep making videos. That feels very tinfoil hatty to me. Somebody else has to remember Lori. Power Boy had a whole arc. He was abusive. There's also a Midnighter and Apollo story in here, which is nice because that means that one of the variant covers is not a lie. It's not just a variant cover to be a variant cover. You will get Apollo and Midnighter in this book if that's what you're looking for. There's also a Constantine story that had the most emotional depth out of all of them. There was the Superman sets Jimmy Olsen up with Power Girl, or rather her civilian identity, Karen Starr, which I made a short about. Oh, the Harley and Ivy stories, by the way, was her ending up with Ivy. If you've been following most of Harley and Ivy's more current depictions, you know how that story is going to play out. There was also a Batman story where he ends up saving a couple who end up so enthralled and indebted to him that they make their wedding Batman themed. You see, with a lot of these, they could be very quick. They could be shorts. In fact, I was gonna make Kite Man a short, but for some reason, I don't know, Kite Man stuck with me, and I wanted to ask all of you a question surrounding that. Have you ever encountered a story where you're not sure if you fully enjoy it or don't. It's in this interesting kind of in-between space. That happened to me with Kite Man, Once Upon a Romance novel. This story was written by Jessica Burbay, art by Priscilla Petrates, who also did the inks, and the colors were by Michael Attea. This story was about Kite Man feeling lonely on Valentine's Day. Kite Man has these surges. He'll fade into the background and then suddenly be brought back. Suddenly he had a sad backstory in the War of Jokes and Riddles, or he became one of the main characters in Harlequin, the animated series. Poison Ivy almost married him. And so you get different versions of Kite Man because of this, and sometimes they play really into the whole Charlie Brown aspect of his name, because he does share a name with Charlie Brown, and play him more in the comedic loser space, which is how they're doing it for this story, which is he's out there, he's lonely, he's bitter about all of the couples that he's seeing. Why can't he find love? He's also wandering the streets just fully in his Kite Man costume. This is a thing that happens sometimes in DC. Your mileage will vary about it. In comedic, more one-off, non-canon stories like this, it's not something that for me personally really gets to me, but for some it really messes with the verisimilitude of the universe that someone could just be wandering around like that. So while Kite Man is wandering, he sees a woman who's sitting by herself on a park bench and decides to shoot his shot that, hey, you're alone, I'm alone, maybe we could spend Valentine's Day together. She is not interested, but he leaves her with his card anyway. When he gets back to his apartment, his monthly book subscription is there, and it's this really just kind of trashy romance novel. But as the evening progresses, he really gets into it. He starts to think about how his life would be so much better if he was like the main character, just inserts himself fully into the romance, and you have a bit of a Miss Bellum thing going on where you don't see the top of the woman's face, you just see all these things always blocking it, and it's mostly about him visualizing himself doing these things. Whoever the female is doesn't matter all that much. He could have great hair and abs. This must be a really quick read, or he's just fallen completely into a fantasy land, because we have a whole wedding sequence where the villain community is there. He's reserved a seat for Batman, who of course does not show up. He's not showing up for Kite Man's wedding. He didn't even get to have his own wedding. Not a proper one. They kind of did another one later in Batman/Catwoman, a Vegas one. Not in this continuity. In past continuity, he said, "What? You know what? No, let's not fall down that path." It also looks like they're going with the Basil Carlo version of Clayface, because he starts talking about how he can make their wedding all Shakespearean if they like. I mean, go for it. Why not? Themed wedding. And so, as they're about to get married, we get the reveal that he's marrying his kite. He's in love with his kite. He's in love with villainy, but his fantasy is ruined, shattered by a knock on the door. It's the woman at the park. She was low-key interested, but she just wanted to make sure that he wasn't the Riddler. Very important. I mean, she should have already known that, because she didn't have to solve some kind of Rubik's Cube or puzzle box to figure out what his number was. But she asked around, and she heard about Kite Man, and I guess she heard okay things. Now I want to know what the average person is saying about Kite Man. Maybe he's Harlequin Kite Man, and they're like, yeah, you know what, give that a chance. But he doesn't need human love anymore. He's got something better. He has his kite. I'm sorry, but hell no, this kite has flown to bigger heights. I have company now. Later, hater. Now, where was I? Yes. The end. Now this was almost in the land of a fanfiction story, only they could have really accented it by making it what's called crack played straight, which is where you take a very silly concept but play it as if it's entirely serious. Just make the entire story about how no, he really is in love with his kite. And that's part of where the humor derives from in that genre. This kind of played it on both sides, leading much more towards the what a wacky and comedic idea. As a result, it comes across more like a series of humorous set pieces rather than a cohesive, coherent, drawn together short story. I looked down because my computer was doing things. I think that's why I was left so perplexed by it, because it didn't fully commit. He starts off, oh, woe is me, so lonely, and then goes to, you know what, being a villain is awesome, and all it took was a romance novel. I have an unhealthy fixation with my kite. It was potentially chuckle-worthy. Again, it depends upon your sense of humor, but I feel like a lot of how I received this story and how random it was had to do with how much this work cost. If this anthology had been cheaper, I feel like I would have had a much different reaction to a lot of the stories, because so many of them are playing the lighthearted realm, even though this story felt like you could have done it better with different villains who are more known for being obsessed with their personas or paraphernalia than, say, Kite Man. It also felt like you could have done this without any DC characters at all, that this could have just been one of those throwaway comedic stories in a classic vintage comic, although you wouldn't have had him actually making out with the kite in that comic. It would have been some other kind of ending, more of an Archie style one. There may have actually been another woman and not a kite. On the whole, because there are more of these anthologies being made at time of recording, some of the special aura that can come from having these more break or not having to take it seriously or not in continuity moments is a bit lost when you have so many of them. It makes them less special. It makes it feel like this could be an opportunity to do something a bit more, or play with something that people would really want to see. Instead, it's more a mishmash. And some of them didn't even end up in here. Like the Batwing Vixen romance was over in the DC Power issue, which charged also more than your average issue because it was an anthology, but included 2 reprints. 2 that I could see at least from other stories. Which reprinting issues is nothing new, but reprinting them and then including the whole book for pretty much full price is not something that sits well with everyone. I don't know, this story put me in a weird headspace and I didn't feel like it was worth a full in-depth analysis video, but I still wanted to talk about it and share it just so other people can share their opinions about Kite Man marrying his kite. I want to know what you think, and how you feel is also going to depend upon lots of things. How invested are you in the DC universe at the moment? How many things are you picking up? How is the overall feeling that you have towards everything going on, because all of that is going to factor into it. This does not feel like something I would splurge on again in the future. Puns aside, the pun was pretty good, but I want to hear what you think. And I also want to know, how do you feel about these more casual type of just quick catch-ups for certain comics? So let me know how you feel about that. And don't worry, this doesn't mean we won't still do all of the in-depth reviews and the retrospectives, because I love those too. I love creating all content. On the whole, I can see enjoying this for what it's meant to be, which is more of a quick popcorn read, get a chuckle here or there, or being annoyed by it and feeling that it could have been a lot more. And even if it isn't something meant to be taken as seriously, that doesn't mean that the story still shouldn't have some kind of more thematic grouping together or more relevance to the overall universe, or feel a bit more like they're working with the characters as they are, or just a whole bunch of other thoughts. So I want to hear from you. Kite Man marrying his kite. Hilarious? Random? Unnecessary? It's gonna be gone from your brain tomorrow? Are you just sitting there with the phrase later hater playing in your head over and over again? Do you not feel that it matters at all? Do you feel like it should matter? Share all of your thoughts down below. I want to hear lots of things from you. Thanks so much for taking some time of your day to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it. I will see you again soon. Please do all YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll be back with more videos when we can. Bye-bye.